so I'm back. So after like 2 videos alluding to this very topic, I finally decided to just sit down and actually finish not just this drawing, but this voiceover. What are we doing today? Well, today we're going to talk about Izou from One Piece, which is also the guy that I'm coloring in today. Fun fact, we have 5 of these hot men to go through, and it just so happens that we're coloring Izou first. So, yay! If you don't know who Izou is, in the One Piece universe, he is the quote-unquote commander of the 16th division of the very established Whitebeard Pirates. In terms of fighting style, he is a sniper. He wields 2 guns, which he keeps like to his side. He's from the One Piece's Japan equivalent, the land of Wano, and he has a little sister named Kiku. Unfortunately, spoilers, you can read it on the wiki too, so it's not that serious, but anyway, it's very serious because he died. Apparently it was a sacrificial act, and I don't want to know more. I'm just sad that he died before I even got to like hyperfixate over him. Anyway, that's the canon accurate summary, but now we're going to take a very sharp turn left as we now begin to talk about the version of him that I have in my head, which is the exciting part. In terms of appearance, he has long pretty hair, very long hair. To me, in my head, like his hair reaches down his hip, his butt, and it's thick hair. It's very, very long and thick hair. He has pale skin. He is very pale. Like his skin tone is close to the color white, and he uses that to his advantage and wears makeup with it. In canon, he wears like lipstick, I think, which I really think is pretty. So I figured let's just take that one step further and say he wears makeup for sport. Like he just enjoys wearing makeup. And also his face is so pretty. Like, have you seen it? It's so round and sharp. Ugh. To go into more detail, his eyes are this pretty almond shape that I feel like no matter how hard I try, I just cannot pin down in my art style. Like it's this combination of like round and slender, which I think is very pretty. I'm gonna say pretty a lot to describe him. Pardon my shit vocabulary. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that in canon, Oda Sensei gave him like double eyelids, but again in my head, I gave him a monolid instead. Because I was inspired by Silky from Red Velvet, whose monolid look got famous a couple years back when she debuted. And then Wonwoo from 17 as well, because he's also famous for his mono eyelids. Anyway, I think giving him mono eyelids was a really good choice because I think it softened his look even more. And also gave him some visual differentiation from all the other old men, more specifically old white men that I'll be drawing for the rest of this series, except Vista, but we'll get to him later. Yeah, and also as I'm writing the script, like I was watching some One Piece clips of Marco and Izou, and bro, I was kicking my feet because Izou was so pretty. Anyway, on other news, I envision Izou's nose to be quite straight and defined. In the angle that I drew for this illustration, I made it out to be quite long, especially since his head is like tilted down, right? So because of that foreshortening, his nose looks quite long. But although I think that the nose length in this like illustration and angle looks fine, but if I were to draw him at a different angle next time, I want his nose to be smaller, because like in the anime, his nose is quite small, though to be fair, you could technically say that's just like an art style thing because the animation tends to like half-ass certain things, so you could just chalk it up to that, but I like it. I think it suits him. I think it's very cute. So we're gonna keep that in future illustrations. That's a note to self for next time. If there is a next time. And also, okay, I want to talk about his mouth next. His lips. Okay, I mentioned before that he wears lipstick, but I'm gonna talk about the shape of them. Honestly, I feel like the shape of his lips is the prettiest compared to like the other old men that I'm drawing. And I like that I drew him like smiling somewhat contentedly in this illustration. Because like in the anime, I feel that his lips tend to be more inclined towards a slight frown. Like I feel like he has resting bitch face, but like he's not like mean or anything. That's just how he is, I guess. And because of that, his lips tend to be frowning downwards. Because it's like, well, resting bitch face, and also because he's a bit more of the serious type to me anyway. But dude, whenever he smiles, it's like so pretty. His smile is so pretty. Like I genuinely gush over it and like kick my feet like a crazy person. I think also in a future illustration, not only do I want to make his nose like small, but I also want to draw him smiling, because his smile is the prettiest thing that I could ever imagine. Like, oh my gosh. That's just like in my head, right? That's the smile you fall in love with. It lights up the room. It lights up your heart. It just makes me happy thinking about it. And also like in like a One Piece clip in Wano, his little smile when he saw Kiku again made me squeal. It's so handsome. Okay. But yeah, before I move on to like the hornier-ish section of the video, I want to talk about this Twitter thread that I saw about Izou. That's very rare that you don't really get much content of him, but this thread, the whole thing was in Korean. Thank goodness for like Google Translate or whatever, but I was enlightened by a couple things OP brought up, so I'm going to talk about that briefly. So the thread started with the question of like, Izou wears a kimono, right? Okay, so he wears a kimono and the material of said kimono is relatively thin. So then the question OP posits is that like, why when Izou wears the kimono, he looks like a scrawny little bitch, but then when he takes it off, he's suddenly a buff guy. Like, what's up with that? Like, why? That's like the whole overarching like thread. The thesis this thread revolves around, and all I remember from that thread is the way OP described him. They described Izou, roughly anyway, as having like a really pretty face, but the body of a quote-unquote big brother. Like, what? I think that's a mistranslation, but when I read that in English, I was like, yeah, exactly. Anyway, another fun thing about this thread, apart from his body type, is does he wear underwear under said kimono? Does he or does he not? Okay, they asked this because they have a screen grab of Izou in the anime in Marineford, where he's jumping down onto the battlefield. Okay, the screenshot is at a very strange angle where you see the top of his head, and then the soldiers at Marineford were looking up at him. And considering the angle, they probably looked up at his crotch. Like for real, they're just staring right at it. It's right there, right? So that made OP ask like, is he wearing underwear under there? And another user retweeted that part of the thread and like showed Izou like holding Marco while kicking his leg up in a kimono as well. The fabric in that like low res polygon screenshot revealed his legs, which implies further that he does not wear underwear apparently. I don't know why I need to reference this, but this part gave me brainworms, and now you have to think about it too. Anyway, I referenced this thread because this thread like reignited the brainworms for Izou. Okay, alongside this exceptionally gorgeous illustration that I saw also on Twitter, which I'll talk about later. But now, with that thread in mind, I wanted to talk about like more specifically why I have brainworms for him. Yes, I am obsessed with his face. I am very, very deeply infatuated with his appearance. That is correct. But on a deeper level, I also think that his appearance is just wonderful. Like to me it has so much potential to be one of the most interesting things ever, and that is how like he in my head combines the best of feminine and masculine beauty. Like for a long time I always cite him as one of the better like non-binary character designs in One Piece, period. And I feel like there's a good reason for it. He is very beautiful, but it's also jacked up and hot, okay? Let's... So now... Okay. So appearances aside, right? This script is going absolutely nowhere. I wrote this in a flurry, like on the train. But anyway, in my head, Izou identifies as like masculine he, him. But he doesn't like shy away from doing things that are conventionally girly. He's just that kind of cool guy, you know? Like, Izou is non-binary, he dresses up. And this is where we get into like, this is not canon at all. I'm just talking shit right now. The source of all this is, dude, trust me, like there is no like canonical confirmation that Izou is any of these things. I might even like not characterize him at all. Like this could also be a complete mischaracterization. Like I totally get that. And that led me to create a blatant Izou ripoff as an OC, but we'll get to that later. Let's talk about the hate canons that I have for him right now. Yay! Okay. So, to me, Izou, he knows he's good looking. He knows he works out and he has a good figure. And so he takes advantage of that to play with like makeup and fashion, knowing full well that he's sexy and hot and like everyone thinks he's so cool, like me. In his off time, his hobby is like curling up his hair. Like I feel like Izou would be very, very pretty with curly hair. He would be so pretty with curly hair. And that's my job to prove it to you guys. Yes, he's just gorgeous with curly hair. And he styles it up with lots of little jewels and combs. Kind of like an Orion or a geisha. Kind of orientalist stereotype, I guess. He'll be very pretty like that. He finds it therapeutic. Going through the process and stuff. Oh yeah. Also, I feel like this is another headcanon of mine. I feel like Izou with short hair, short enough until you see his neck, he will look very different from his usual long hair look. I think if he were to cut it that short, he'll look young. He'll look like a young man. Like, that's how crazy it'll be, like, having short hair. I feel like he'll think it's really funny to not have all this weight on his head, to finally, like, feel his scalp again, to feel light. But after a while, I feel like he'll be quite disoriented because it's not what he's used to seeing. But anyway, like I feel like if he were to cut his hair short, right, it'll reveal more of like how his face actually looks like, because he's not relying like on his poofy hair to finish the look. Like you just see like how his face actually looks like. And dude, his face, as I've spent like the first like 5 minutes yapping, is beautiful. It's so wow. Like his features, like his eyes, his lips, and even his nose, they're very like, I feel like they're very feminine coded. But then if you take into account like his sharp jaw and high cheekbones, you're like, this guy is handsome. He's so masculine in this very clean cut pretty way. I don't know how to explain it, but he's not like that where he's like bearded or Vista with a big mustache. Like he's very clean cut. He doesn't have facial hair, but like you can tell he's masculine. He's sexy, you know? He's manly, he's cool, he's tough, he's strong, he's sexy, you know? Yeah. But seriously, dude, his natural beauty is to die for. Like his bare face is so clean and youthful, because he keeps his skin nice and he barely has wrinkles except for some like really fine minor ones by his mouth and eyes and forehead because he like frowns a lot. Very handsome. It's like he's so pale that like even when he removes his makeup, he looks exactly the same. And that's just like bro. And he sleeps well too, so like he has very minimal like gray eye bags, very minimal. And also when he removes his makeup, the major difference is that you can see the scar above his left eyebrow. I guess the question is like, how did he even get that scar? Did Oda Sensei even explain that? Or do I just have to make up a headcanon for it? Because like pre-time skip, Izou didn't have that, but post-time skip, Izou did? So I was like, what's up with that? Well, anyway. Now we're going to talk about... Oh, yes. Also, This isn't a Jack on headcanon if I don't talk about what kind of job he does. Because as a corporate girly, what I do for a living matters to me quite a bit because I don't want to be in corporate hell. But anyway, let's think about like his career for a minute. Now this is where I bring up this exceptionally gorgeous illustration that I mentioned earlier. I'll put it on screen now and I'll link the original like artist and post in the description box below. Dude, this illustration had me in a chokehold because this illustration captures attitude. It captures his fierce energy and also like his penchant for luxury shiny things. I hate canon Izou to really like shiny things like a fucking magpie. like he'll like claim it's like artistic, it has craftsmanship, but bro, he has like the instincts of a child when it comes to flashy, gaudy things. He just really likes it. Like he indulges in luxury products because he can. He's rich, he's glamorous, he's stunning and confident, you know. He's stunning. But anyways, as I said, he's rich, but he didn't get this money off of working in corporate hell. He's better than me. He refuses, right? So like he would have done an office job for maybe like 2 years tops and decided that he fucking hates it, and so decided to like take a leap to pursue like a really unconventional career. So like to me that involves like creativity. Like in one of my fics I wrote him as a photographer. I think he'd be a very good photographer. Like, he's a photographer, but he could very well be the damn model. Other, like, AUs in my head could be like, oh, he's an actor. I also wrote him as a professor once. A Japanese cultural professor. He could also be, like, a fashion designer. But I feel something that unifies these ideas together is that, above all, he has a ton of creative hobbies that he loves expressing himself in. He is either like a diehard social media fanatic, like he loves his social media platforms, or he is very cynical about it. It goes either way. Like you can't just be in the middle. He's that crazy. If I were to talk about like his horniness for a minute, right? I'd say Izou is a switch. Like he switches. I like to think that these old men are really open to either being the pitcher or the catcher, but for Izou specifically, he's usually on the receiving end, but sometimes he gets the itch to be dominant and aggressive. He gets that itch, like not often, because he's like still a very kind person, but once he has that itch to be dominant, it's kind of hard to talk him out of it. Oh yeah. Okay. Now, let's talk about the art again. I feel like if I were to improve on this illustration in particular, I like to take advantage of his hair more, that I mentioned at the start of this video, and in my previous video as well, roughly, where I talked about how I wanted to create a gorgeous, flowing, billowing composition with him lying down, right? Yeah, I want to take advantage of his hair more, and also I know I colored his hair to be quite dark, but I want to, in the next illustration, I want to include some like white streaks in there. I feel like that'll be quite lovely. But yeah, thanks so much for listening to this shitty ramble. Thank you for listening to my brainworms. It's this very sloppily written script. For the next illustration for this series, we're going to do Satch, and there's a whole separate brainworms, but we'll get to him when we get to him. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye. Mwah.